I'm really excited to share what Maria Mignon, the executive director of OMA, and I've been working on for almost 2.5 years now in partnership with the Oceanside beachfront resort owners. We have selected over 100 artists. We're purchasing and commissioning work all the way from artists from LA to TJ for 2 new hotels that are being built in Oceanside and will be opening up in 2021. So, and we had our curatorial process really was inspired by the Oceanside Museum of Art's own curatorial mission, and that is sometimes edgy, sometimes traditional, but always unexpected. We were looking for thoughtful, smart, and innovative work. And we worked together with a whole team of stakeholders, and it wasn't just Maria and I, we worked with architects and designers and also hotel leadership. And this hotel really, the new hotels are really representing a shift in paradigm in terms of the way the hotel's connecting to the community vis-a-vis the museum. And Maria and I are going to be, we're really excited. We're going to be developing all kinds of programming for the hotels that connect to the museum. We're building a bridge. And so it'll be curated exhibitions, travel packages, artist talks, and, artist classes, opportunities to purchase work from artists. So there's a whole plan that we have in place that will really liven the community and really bring to full fruition the work that will be at the hotel. So we're very, very excited about that. You can learn more about the project at the OMA website under Visit. And, we have a lot more about the hotels there as well. So before I introduce our wonderful artists, I'm so happy and grateful that they've joined us today. Their work has a lot in common, and I'll go into that in a little bit, and all their work are in quite prominent spaces in the hotel. But I was wondering, Adam, if you could roll the slides that we selected. Let's see, Adam, there he is. So starting at the top of where the hotel images are. Yeah, just to show briefly, Maria and I, with construction, actually quite a few months ago, wearing our hard hats, and we're standing in front of Mission Pacific, actually. So there are 2 hotels, Mission Pacific and Seabird. Overall, there are 400 guest rooms with multiple restaurants, fitness areas, a spa, and one has more of a boutique feel and the other has a residential feel. The one here you're looking at on the left is Seabird, the South Hotel, and North Block is Mission Pacific right next to it. And this is a beauty shot at night. This is the artist rendering on the left of what the hotels will look like, overlooking the pier, and the restaurants will overlook the pier. It will just be, the sunsets will just be a gorgeous experience, and you'll be ensconced in really beautiful artwork. On the left is the Graves House, which will be actually the actual historical Graves House. The whole house will be incorporated into the boutique hotel, into Mission Pacific. And it may become an ice cream restaurant. That's the plan as it stands now. And then this is a peek into one of the guest rooms. Artist is Richard Becker, and on the left is Jory Hurley. And this is the Seabird guest room. Right now, this is the model room, and these were constructed to be able to build out all the other guest rooms. And so there you have it. So I would love to introduce our wonderful artists. And as I said, just initially, that I did see a lot of common threads throughout your work. You can see what's behind you, and that it might seem on the surface very different, although there are certain aesthetic pieces that do all connect with each other. But I would say, your eco-activism, all of you, in one form or another, your very physical process, I was really interested in as well, especially in this digital age. I think I really appreciate the hand involved in the process as well. And so what I'd like to do is introduce each of you, and then have you introduce yourselves, and then I have a few questions, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. How does that sound? Okay, great. Well, Courtney, I'd love to start with you. So Courtney, if you could, and actually something exciting as well, each artist to give a little sneak peek of the work in the hotel. And so take it away, Courtney.
Great. So I'll let Adam pull up the slides of my work. I'm Courtney Mattison. I'm an artist and ocean advocate, and I'm based in Los Angeles. I have a background in marine conservation, science, and policy. So a lot of my educational background is in coral reefs and conservation. And as an artist, I use my artistic skills and my background in science to translate those scientific concepts into large-scale installations like the work behind me here in my studio, and also some of the photos that I'll show you. This is a work I did last year called Malum Geminos, but a lot of my work is inspired by climate change and other human impacts on coral reefs and other ocean ecosystems. I hand texture all of my work. It's often very intricate. I don't use any molds, so it's very handmade and has my fingerprints on every piece. But I like to create works that are really organic and feel like they have a sense of motion. And so this is the sketch that I came up with for the reception area at the Seabird Hotel, and I'm really excited to create this work. It's got a really fast sense of swirling motion, and it sort of elevates coral reefs off the seafloor into kind of a galaxy of spiral forms that imply, to me at least, that there's sort of a sense of uncertainty about the future of coral reefs, and they depend on us to protect them into the future. So this is a rendering that I put onto the architect's rendering for the Seabird reception area. And these are a couple shots of me creating large-scale wall reliefs on the floor of my studio. Right where I'm sitting, actually, on the floor in here in my studio, I create gigantic sculptural works piece by piece, and they all fit together like a big three-dimensional puzzle. This is a work that I created a couple years ago as a commission, and it's the inspiration for the design for the Seabird. This one is much bigger. It's about 17 by 11 feet. So it's really gigantic, and hundreds of individual pieces that I'll attach to the wall. And the transition from colorful, really healthy, colorful corals to bleached white ones is important. I think that transition implies how coral reefs represent a really visual, stark representation of climate change and what's happening. And so we can talk more about that color choice, I think, in the Q&A.
Oh, good. Yes, absolutely.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Jeff, I'm sure you see some similarity in the process and the work in terms of, you know, that it's unique, each piece is unique. Isn't that correct, Jeff?
Each piece is completely unique. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, yeah, and Jeff, if you could, welcome, and I'd love for you to speak about your work.
Okay. Hi, Jeff Irwin. I have been making work for a very, very long time. It always seems that I've gone back consistently to dealing with nature images as far back as I can remember. And it seems to be because I'm very attached to nature. When I see nature, that's what brings me the calmness that one can feel or hopes to feel. And these are just images of newest work actually I've done. These butterflies are the newest pieces I've finished. They're showing at the R.B. Stevenson Gallery as a way of really trying to deal with fragility of nature. I couldn't think of a more fragile element to use or animal to use than butterflies. Some are extinct, some are endangered, and they're very light and airy and very difficult to make, but I think they're really, compared to my other pieces that are more singular and have more weight to them, these new ones are much more airy and much more delicate. But this is a part of this another series I did of extinct animals at the History Museum in Balboa Park, of 40 of the last extinct animals. So they are all morphed between tree forms and animals. I try to find that connection between the two, and so that's about 8 feet across. There's a close-up of one of the butterflies I did for the show, and putting them on these sort of plaques that very quickly make people understand the fact that these are supposed to be related to the idea of a trophy. So trophies represent a lot to me about man's sort of power over nature and need to put it on display. So a lot of these are dealing with that, and I try to vary the character in each one of the pieces so they have an individual spirit.
Wonderful, yeah. And for the hotel, you will be there'll be an assortment of your beautiful butterflies in the main lobby of Seabird as well, and in one niche, and it'll be paired with an Andrea Chung painting for those of you who know Andrea Chung's work, and they really complement each other beautifully. And what's lovely about the arrangement of your butterflies on the wall is that the way they're patterned on the wall will create motion, right? I mean, they're solid pieces that are in stasis, yet the arrangement will create movement, which I think will be really, really stunning and will be really visible from a distance.
Yeah, I'm really excited to do it. I think it'll be really, I've seen the sketches of the rendering that you guys came up with, and it looks really exciting. I'm very, very, as I said, excited in doing it.
Well, we're very pleased to have all of you, actually. Thank you. So Chris Johoski, hello. So Chris is not in Seabird. Courtney and Jeff are in Seabird, and Chris will be in Mission Pacific. And someone I saw in the chat asked which one is which. So Seabird is south, Mission Pacific is north. And so Chris is in north, and his work will be in the pool bar, but I'll let him get to that. So Chris, if you could talk a little bit about yourself and your work.
Thanks, Rebecca. I'm Cristopher Cichocki. I'm living and working here in the Coachella Valley. Palm Springs specifically is where I have my studio. And for the past couple decades, I've been working in an extension with land art, but in a way that I've eventually come to terms with this thing I like to call New Earth art. And for me, New Earth art is essentially the mutation that's happening between humankind, the natural world, and industrial production. And so I'm incorporating a lot of nature, actual natural organic forms, but then applying industrial construction paint, which stems from my time living in Los Angeles and New York. These infrastructural street markings always caught my eye, and I started photographing them in the early part of 2000. And so that's extended into installations and performances. I perform under the moniker Circular Dimensions at music festivals and things like that. So this is right here, a installation that I did last year in Cathedral City that was commissioned by the Cathedral City Arts Commission. And you're looking at about 5 tons of irrigation tubing that was discarded from an abandoned orchard out here in the Indio Hills. And the trees that are painted on top of the irrigation tubes were actually from that same orchard. So the tubes, what I like about the piece is that the tubes once watered the trees. And so it's a real definitive idea of this word we use, recycle. But recycle, if we really think about it, is truly coming into a new cycle, a new form of life. And so at nighttime, there was a transition with the black light and the kind of day glow, fluorescent neon, whatever you want to call it, paint. And so, yeah, the work transitioned throughout the 3-month exhibition span. And it was a parallel exhibition to Desert X. And this is a project called Root Cycle, which I was commissioned to do in Bassano del Grappa, Italy. And this is in front of a very historic Andre Palladio Villa Ungrano that was built in the mid 1600s. And so Root Cycle, essentially, you'll see these plastic structures, which typically they go underground. This thirsty concrete, rainfall comes, goes through the concrete, and the plastic creates a barrier underneath the ground so the water can be preserved. And so Geoplast was the company that commissioned this project. They said, we like your work, we like the environmental eco concept behind it. Would you be interested in selecting one of our products to make an installation? I go, well, this is the kind of thing I'd pick up at the hardware store anyway, absolutely. And so, nighttime, this transition into the live aloe vera and the branches and this glow of the black light, and kind of like this suspended garden in a sense. And then this is a still from a performance that I did at the Institute of Mental Physics a few years back with my circular dimensions, audio-visual performance. And you're looking at one of my performer laboratory collaborators, Leslie there, doing a live microscopic video painting with a digital microscope that's being projected. This was in the center of the room. This is in a Frank Lloyd Wright and Lloyd Wright church that they built at the Institute of Mental Physics some time ago. And yeah, it's black light illumination and the bowls and projection. And here we have one of my nucleus paintings, this ongoing series that I've been doing for a while. And this is a painting that Rebecca saw this summer from my exhibition in Italy, and she said, "Hey, what's going on with that? How much is that?" So that's how I'm part of the hotel project.
It's going to be it's going to illuminate the room beautifully. Yeah, I mean, during the day, it has a very different aesthetic than at night with the black light, which is wonderful. Is that, again, about time and motion. So it transcends the two-dimensional, right?
Definitely. It's kind of a light and space piece, really. It is, yeah. Painting, but it also has two lights. I mean, the daytime and then the shift to the night, and then I'm going to put even a little phosphorescent. So it will also have, like, when the lights are totally out, a little bit of glowing residue.
Oh, beautiful. Wonderful. Well, thank you all. So I have a few questions for you. And the first one I'd like to start with, and perhaps, let's see, we'll start with Courtney again. I'm from the East Coast, and I moved here, and something I'm very interested in my own work is this social science field of study called place identity. And so I myself was very drawn to the desert, right? Because it's this other and exotic to me, and really trying to explore that and understand it and feel an affinity, right? A feeling an affinity with a place is quite important, I think, to human nature. And my question really is, so I know you were born in San Francisco, right? You were raised in San Francisco. And so I'm wondering, and I know Jeff's from California, and Chris is not. He was born in Illinois, I believe.
Yeah, but I'm a desert rat.
Okay. So, but I'm wondering how much of that plays into how it informed the choices that you've made as artists, in terms of wanting to either connect to place or to the message that you are exploring. So Courtney, if you could speak to that first.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think growing up in San Francisco on the California coast definitely influenced me a lot. I was always excited and kind of fascinated with what was under the waves. My mom and I would go to the pier area in San Francisco and kind of secretly pull up crab traps and peek inside to see what was in there. And we probably weren't supposed to do that, but the sea always seemed like it was full of secrets. And I started studying marine biology at an early age. My high school offered a marine biology class, and for whatever reason, I just got completely obsessed with marine invertebrates without ever having gone scuba diving or anything, really putting my face underwater. But I felt like they were really exotic and beautiful and kind of alien and sculptural. And so for some reason at the same point, I also started sculpting them. And from there, like, it snowballed into scuba certified and really deep my connection to the ocean. But I think that first inkling definitely started in California.
Well, I'm going to go off in a quick tangent and then get back to my question. But for you, Courtney, is that so you would consider yourself now, but you're fully immersed in the arts, the intersection of science and arts, whereas you eschew then the scientist route, and you feel that it really embodies everything that you want to express then about coral and the fragility of corals and our ecosystems.
Yeah, I almost became a marine biologist. I think that was definitely a draw for me early on, but I realized pretty quickly in college, once I started really scuba diving regularly and exploring these ecosystems in person, I was falling in love with them, and at the same point, completely heartbroken to realize how threatened coral reefs are by human activities. And I felt like I needed to make an emotional plea for to actually connect personally and care more emotionally about saving these ecosystems. And I didn't feel like I could do that as a scientist. I knew that I had to use my skills as an artist and really hone them to have the voice that I want to have to inspire people.
Interesting. So, and Jeff, what about you? I mean, what do these, most of your work that I've seen has the tree form, right? There's the butterfly, but and the, the trophy, as you say, and their truncated limbs and so on and so forth. How does that tie into your environments and to your upbringing, for instance?
Well, I grew up in Huntington Beach, and I was there until I went off to college to Humboldt State, and very connected to Huntington, played in the water a lot, but I found great peace there. But when I went to Humboldt, I started art school there and really delved into what I wanted to. And it just turned out everything I was making had to do with nature. I didn't even quite question it. Those are the things I wanted to do. So I was making large aerial landscapes, water forms, lots of things dealing with nature. And I was there for 5 years, and then I came back. Then I came to San Diego, went to my undergraduate school here, and I think what the tree thing happened because I was missing the trees of Humboldt so much. I used to run up behind the campus there and, run through redwood trees. And I think coming here and it being such a different environment, I noticed the lack of trees here. And I think that was one of the myths. So I started doing work about loss, and the loss of being an environment that is so rich in natural forms. So I continued that ever since, whether they were dealing with animal forms or this tree form. But it seems to be I never get tired of it. I keep finding ways to examine it. I keep wanting to say things I've just taken by the tree form. I just spent the past, the days here of being sort of locked at home. I've done 45 drawings of various tree forms.
Oh, wonderful.
Totally, I just can't seem to stop.
Yeah.
And just let it go and keep making them.
Well, there's a plethora now of books out about trees, tree and the way they communicate with each other. Have you been looking into that?
I have.
Mitochondria and how all the networks communicate, and I'm sure that could take your work in another direction as well.
It could. But I think a lot of this, the reason they're so truncated is because my fear of loss.
Right.
It hits me emotionally, and I think I respond to it.
Very interesting. So, and Chris, so you and I, in your work from Coachella Valley has informed you, and then your work in the Salton Sea, I think, is really interesting in talking about the degradation of the environment and the role of man, humankind, I should say, in that sort of in the degradation. If you want to talk a little bit about that, I mean, was just your environs must have informed that pursuit for you.
Sure. Yeah. So just to back step a little bit, you mentioned I was born in Illinois and I was raised in Wisconsin for the first 10 years of my life.
Oh, okay.
So I had this forest kind of backyard that I could just endlessly walk and just get lost. And I was making, just kind of rocks and leaves and Andy Goldsworthy type of earthworks at a very young age. It wasn't like, oh, I'm an artist or, anything like this. It was just, that's what you instinctively do, just like Native American kind of tradition or whatever it may be, and coming then in 1989 into the Coachella Valley, I was still wanting to explore these, dirt roads. Like, okay, what's down here? What's down there? Oh, this abandoned house. This is amazing. make an assemblage, and I was photographing essentially these kind of assemblage / land art projects while I was in high school, and not thinking of them still really as art. It was just like, oh, let's just do it. And I was like, oh, there's a tradition to this. And so it just was a real instinctual kind of thing. But then, going to Cal Arts and going to this, Cal Arts is like the conceptual art school, right? And so you get exposed to a lot of really experimental and really, what the hell is that kind of thing? And then coming back to the desert, I kind of went to the Salton Sea one day, because I was there prior, and I go, oh my God, this place is just dying. What is this? And I was there in high school just to shoot some film of it. And just it was a big mystery to me. But then when I came back years later, after living in Los Angeles for a while, the Salton Sea spoke to me in such a way where I go, oh my God, everything is like an installation. It's this kind of post-apocalyptic, dated, kind of environment, and that collision between this, which is essentially a man-made lake, right? The Salton Sea was an accidental runoff from the Colorado River in 1906, and it just started coming in, and then people started saying, "Oh, we can fish here. We can, have the Beach Boys and Frank Sinatra and Marilyn Monroe water ski," and it was really kind of a utopian getaway for a lot of Los Angeles. And the reason why a lot of people started living in the Coachella Valley, because it was so close to the Salton Sea. People started moving into places like Indio and Palm Desert a little bit later, Palm Springs, right? Anyhow, yeah, I'm a complete product of my environment, and looking at the desert and how, going back even to 10,000 years, you can see evidence of how the desert was once immersed underwater. And so right now, here in Palm Springs, I'm essentially on the seabed of an ancient ocean, but it's a completely arid desert now. And so a lot of my work bridges that relationship from the ancient oceanic past into the arid kind of present state of the desert. And I look at a lot of these kind of native tumbleweeds, native plants, as really the surviving seeds of this ancient ocean. And so once I start to insert the neon color onto them, this becomes, you start to see that definition and that fractal similarity to the oceanic past much clearer.
So we are getting lots of questions about the materials that you use, and that was one of my questions. My question is that I wanted to explore with each of you this idea of the inert quality and the quality that's alive, either metaphorically or literally. Like in Chris's case, right? There's inert, and then there's he's actually using plants, like live plants, right? And so maybe you could start, Chris, but then, for instance, the question is for Courtney, are they based on real species or are they imaginary? And for Jeff, what is the material that you're using? So maybe you could talk about this, for instance, when I say the inert versus something that's alive, I mean, you have Jeff has a cat, right? It's about this metaphorical creature that's alive, but yet it's in stasis. So, since I started with Chris, if you could just talk a little bit about the tension between the two.
So yeah, it's really important for me that the materials are coming from a source that's beyond my grasp of creation, but then I'm of course adding to them, manipulating them, and making kind of a hybrid mutation. And the idea of that neon color also relating to bioluminescence, having it really, we're looking at color, we're looking at kind of perception that really hasn't been around that long with the neon fluorescent black light perception. I mean, it's only been, what, less than 100 years, right? And looking at the trajectory of color over time, we talked about, not we, but in the past, Homer, people thought he was being poetic and like the sea is red. Well, the sea was blue, but we didn't have the name for blue yet, right? And so there's a lot of kind of primordial archetypes built into color. I'm fascinated that the color red, your body temperature immediately increases by 1 degree. Blue takes it down immediately by 1 degree. That's a primordial knee-jerk reaction that physiologically our bodies are responding to. I don't know if that answers your question. Sorry.
Yeah, it does. I mean, yeah, you did refer to it, and you wove in color, which was one of my next questions, if we have time for it. But Jeff, since I had mentioned you, do you want to talk a little bit about, even the materials that you're using, right? It's clay, and then there are stasis, but they're actually of creatures that are alive. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh yeah, the clay is just a neat, it comes in a box. It's a simple tool. It's it's just dirt. It's basically some variation on dirt, and the fact that I can mold it into any total freedom. So I think the fact that the material fits my way of thinking and how if I want to build something, I just have to come up with a technique to create that. I like the fact that it is a natural material, and I'm working with natural forms, and I find a connection there that seems to make sense for me. I could have gone out and found trees or worked with wood, but it just doesn't allow for that flexibility that I need. And I'm working on a piece, have an idea, I'll start to develop it as I'm working with it, like many artists do. It's all at the moment you change your idea and you work with it as a medium. I like that character of it. Just allows so much flexibility. But the imagery of these animals and how they relate to the material, I think I just like that connection. You have this earth creating another part of the earth, and they all sort of exist in framework, and I love that part of it.
And Courtney, you could probably speak to that as well. I'm sure. I mean, that sounds like something you might refer to as well.
It is. Yeah, I relate to everything you just said, Jeff. I think it's that freedom of taking mud basically and sculpting whatever you want out of it is really liberating, and it is a really intuitive way to create forms that come from nature, from our own imaginations, and then into real life. And so for me, creating corals out of clay makes a lot of sense, because the calcium carbonate that's in a lot of the glazes and materials that I use is the main structure that corals actually build their skeletons from. So that sense of chemical makeup is really important to me, and also the fragility that embodies. If you mishandle a live coral on a reef, you can kill it really easily, and that's similar to some of my more fragile work. You can imagine how fragile porcelain anemone tentacles would be, for example. And when I'm creating my work, I am informed by the study of taxonomy of all the different species that I've studied in marine biology classes and out doing field work, but I often try to take some artistic license and create kind of hybrids and evoke senses of curiosity and wonder in viewers that I feel when I'm scuba diving on a reef in the wild. So I try not to be too anatomically correct or specific about individual organisms, but I want to evoke their forms and what I find really beautiful about them.
Wonderful. I do have another question, but I thought this would be appropriate to ask. Someone asked, I believe you stated that you create the pieces individually, then fit them together like a jigsaw puzzle. This seems impossible. Can you share more about that?
It's really complicated. It's meticulous, and it all makes sense if you know kind of my full process, but I essentially measure really carefully a million times. And when I start with a sketch on paper, I already know the measurements of every single piece and where all the pieces are going to attach to the wall in relation to one another before I start building anything. So it's all very planned out and not as organic as it looks.
Well, there are some additional questions from the audience, but I think I want to just get in a couple of quick ones, and then we can move over to Q&A from the audience. And that is, the question that I think is important to ask in terms of the quarantine and how that's affected your work. I know that, for instance, Chris has had a big piece at Coachella, slated for Coachella, and that's been slated for another time, right? So anybody can answer this. Has it, if you could speak a moment about, has it been to work in your studio more, less distracted, or what would you say? Anyone can take it.
Well, I think a lot of new doors are opening up. I think it's interesting. I mean, obviously it's not ideal that people can't come and visit your studio, but I mean, now all of a sudden, look, we're doing this, right? And everybody's doing this type of thing, and I think that's really valuable because art can translate in this digital era, and so I've got studio visits scheduled now through Zoom, which is something I never really did too much of. I mean, okay, Skype, this, but now it's like, oh, it's a thing. Let's do a virtual Zoom studio tour visit. And I think that's a positive in a lot of ways, because when everything settles from COVID, we're going to be more connected and I think more open than we were prior. And then, just personally speaking, I mean, hey, I've been training for, isolation and focus for 41 years, so I'm okay, I'm doing all right. And I'm also kind of developing ideas and how to be more interactive with live stream and these mediums that all of a sudden become that much more relevant. So it's an interesting time, to say the least. And at the same time, it's also nice to, of course, see your friends and hang out.
And Courtney?
I'm kind of loving it. I know it's a really awful, horrible time, and I listen to way too much news, and so I was getting really down about it. And I feel really fortunate that so far I don't have really close friends and family who've been personally affected by the pandemic yet. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm just grateful for what's happening right now. But for now, I have enough clay in my studio. I have very few distractions, and I usually work alone anyway. And so I've just been really productive, and I'm really loving this kind of bubble that I'm in, where I can just focus on what I do best and what means the most to me. So
That's fantastic. That's really very positive. And what about you, Jeff?
Well, kind of similar to all of them, we're sort of used to being alone. I mean, that's kind of, we spend hours anytime, whether now we can't go out as much. We don't have as many direct communications with our friends and things. But so I've been in the studio every day, but there's a certain weight that living with in this time. And I'm not sure if I would have done this work without this. So it's kind of a little bit doing a lot of drawing. I haven't touched clay, and since this whole thing has started, I've just been doing drawings, a little darker, but they look like some of my clay in the way of the work. I'm making a lot. I've got a lot of new drawings. Not sure where it's going to go, but there is a weight in the air, and I do feel it, and I do hope we get through this at some point.
Absolutely. So my last question, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience, is the idea of having your work in the hotel. I'm not sure if any of you have done that before. I know Courtney's, and you're in all kinds of institutions, and even on the National Geographic boat, right? What do you think about your work in the context of a hotel, the viewer experience of your work, and how do you think that might shift? If you could speak to that a little bit. Wait, Courtney, why don't you start?
Sure. Yeah, I love showing my work in public venues, and I think this is a really fun opportunity to kind of surprise people and potentially inspire them in ways that they may not expect. I think we're all creating work that's very colorful and intricate and has a lot of craftsmanship to it. And so I think that is really appealing to people as they're just sort of, trying to relax and walk through the lobby on the weekend that they're staying at one of the hotels. And I hope that my work will get people to kind of come up and maybe try to learn more what the concept is, and maybe become more interested in the issues that it's kind of involving. So
yeah, I mean, all of you, again, as I said, you're eco-activists, and you want, I mean, that I'm sure you strive to have an impact, right? To raise awareness about the environment and human impact on the environment as well. Jeff, what about you?
Well, I'm excited about, a whole new group of people seeing my work. As I show in museums and galleries, and that's kind of been venues. And so to see a larger group of the population coming and see it, it's very exciting. I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping my work touches people in ways that makes them feel more in touch with nature, or feel nature is fragile and somehow affects them. That is my hope. But just having an audience is so much broader from my typical audience. And I'm very excited about it. I mean, I really am. I think it'll be, I'm looking forward to seeing them installed, and just sitting around and watching people as they walk by, and see if they pick up on it, or if they stop for a few seconds. And, with the hope that maybe this will help in some way, or just help is maybe not the right word, but have people just have some sort of begin to have a sensitivity towards their environment. Maybe that will be helpful.
Well, it's very lovely. And what about you, Chris?
I think this is going to be great for San Diego and everybody that comes to visit. I mean, it sounds really like what you're doing along with the hotel is starting a cultural program. It's beyond just decorating the walls. It's going to expand into opportunities for public engagement and actual substantial interactions with art that is not static. It can be whatever it is you want it to be. It sounds like it's a platform, right? Yeah. And so with my in the confines and the very, very specific area in the hotel, and I think it's gonna be stunning, and really looking forward when I can come and have a stay.
I know. Imagine the day when we look at the branding decks of the hotels, and there's all these people convening, having a great time, and it just seems so foreign to us right now, that idea. But that will happen again, and soon, hopefully in 2021, when the hotels will open, and we'll all get to enjoy all of your work, in addition to all the wonderful artists that we have. Marie and I are so excited about all the work we've selected for the hotels. So, okay, so why don't I ask a few questions here from the audience. I guess, well, actually, Maria is asking, Jeff, are you influenced by literature, mythology at all? There's a feeling with mythology or fairy tale in your work.
I wouldn't say directly, no. I wouldn't say that those that mythology is a big connection. It's more of a very personal relationship I have with the work, and it's not direct. I can't think of a direct way that mythology or fairy tales are really connected.
It reminds me, people can have strange associations. My association is, do you know the film by Jean Cocteau, Beauty and the Beast, right? What was it, 1940s, 30s? But anyways, the heads coming off the wall, do you know that? So it always reminds me of that. So there's they're in white and they're beautiful, but there's something slightly macabre as well. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think they were, I've seen the movie, and all that is a part of my memory bank and all that.
The memory bank, yes.
Yeah. And I was very influenced by the surrealist Magritte. So they're all up there. They're all a part of this sort of soup that
very interesting.
Me. And those are the things I was attracted to. So now I have work that relates to that. So I can see how that all connects.
Okay, let's see. Well, you've talked a little bit about this, but someone would like, if you could repeat, Jeff, again, interested in the white, all the white in your work. If you could just speak to that a little bit more.
Okay, so for years I did very colorful, and then I went to black and white, very graphic. And then at one point I left, when I started doing these animal wood combinations, I tried to paint them with colors or with black and white, and I realized it just didn't work. The whiteness created this quiet environment, this sort of way in which the shadows would be seen, every bit of texture would be picked up. Color was always hiding it. Black and white was definitely hiding it. So this brought up the subtlety, and it created a feeling of poetry, is kind of the word I'm looking for, of in the form. And it just changed. It's very different than anything I had done in the past, and it really touched me. And I just couldn't go back with these particular forms to adding any color in any way.
Interesting. So I had a question for Courtney. Courtney, let's see, your work is stunning. Some of the pieces look so large and heavy. I'm curious, how do you stabilize your work so it doesn't fall off the wall?
Thank you. Yeah, good question. That one always comes up. I've experimented with a lot of different techniques to hang my work on the wall. It looks a lot heavier than it is. I build everything hollow, so the walls of all the pieces are actually only maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick in most cases. And I've just developed a whole array of different sturdy hardware that I can attach to the back of the pieces. So I've made it through a couple earthquakes so far, small ones, but hopefully.
A feat of engineering. So you know what, I don't have a question here right now. Christopher, I do. Here we go. Let's see. Oh, they wanted to know if the piece at the museum is what's behind you, but we actually presented that. So maybe Adam, we could show Chris's work again for the hotel from the slides. Do you have those? Here it is. Perfect. So this, let's see, BJ Lane asked that. So that's the piece for the hotel. And Chris, if you could just say another quick sentence about it again for the person who asked.
Yeah, so this is a painting called Nucleus, and it's illuminated with blacklight, but I like to call blacklight ultraviolet radiation is the technical definition. This is essentially a day glow neon gradient placed on top with a combination of sea salt and kind of acrylic polymer. And the daytime perception is quite nice, but the nighttime with the dramatic completely black light is even, I think, more dynamic. And so, yeah, this work will be positioned in the bar area?
In the pool on the 6th floor in Mission Pacific, which is North Block, and it's called Pool Bar North. And it has a very prominent space and will really illuminate the room beautifully.
Yeah, so, this idea of not only having it as a painting, but really, the thought is creating an atmosphere of light and space and, kind of the shifting the sensory perception.
So I have one more question for everybody, but if you could just answer this one, Courtney, it's kind of an interesting question. Have you ever shown your work underwater?
No, not yet. I haven't, but it's always something I'm thinking about. I think I have a few ideas, but there's another artist named Jason DeCaires Taylor who does a lot of concrete forms, a lot of human figures underwater, and plants corals on them, and they're really gorgeous. So
oh wow, the name again is of the artist?
DeCaires Taylor.
Okay, I'll have to look that up. Okay.
It's a documentary called Angel Azul.
Okay, great, wonderful. So there's several questions, but since we're running out of time, the last one I get to ask, and that is, and which I'm sure will be of interest to everybody, just what's next for you as artists? I know, Jeff, you're talking about your drawings, and so is that something that you're going to flesh out to actually bring out into public, or is that just for you?
No, I think it's something I'll bring out to the public. I'm doing, there are these Rorschach prints I'm doing. It's quite an interesting process, but it's creating images. It is allowing me to create images I can't make in clay. They're very, very delicate drawings. And I see these as somehow influencing my next body of work. I mean, after I get the butterflies done for the hotel, I see possibly informing the new body work. I think I will show these. So I have shown a few of these beforehand, but they're going to be printed onto mylar and then hung in frames, so you can see, and so you'll have a shadow effect with them. So
beautiful. I look forward to seeing them.
Yeah, thanks.
When you're ready. And Chris. Okay. You have Coachella coming, well, if someday Coachella coming up, and what else do you have on the horizon?
I am working to generate my nonprofit arts organization, Epicenter Projects. You can see it at epicenterprojects.com, the archive of what I've been doing since 2014, bringing international artists down to the Coachella Valley to do these site responsive, time-based interventions alongside the San Andreas Vault as this kind of external studio, right? And then also been curating a lot of sound art and different performance events through Epicenter as well. And so I'm going to be partnering with an organization that's from Paris, France, and so we're kind of going to be merging the energy of Paris into Palm Springs here, and looking forward to generating a lot of new exhibitions and performances and live stream type of events. So definitely working hard on that.
Fantastic. And Courtney?
I'm pretty busy in here. I've got a few different projects I'm working on. I'm working on a body of work right now that's going to be shown someday, eventually, in New York in a private office. And then that will be work that I can continue to show afterwards. So that'll be a fun kind of new way to branch off and create some smaller works that can travel more easily. And I'm excited to start working on this project for the Seabird. And we'll see. I have a couple other things that are probably going to be delayed also, but there's another work that I designed for a liberal arts college in the South, actually. So that should be
fantastic.
fun.